Welcome to round 5 of the Stevenage Sheet Metal Super 1 MSA British Karting Championships from here at Rissington Kart Club. We've not been here for a long time, but it's a fantastic track with plenty of overtaking and we're expecting a great meeting. This is Super 1. I'm joined today by the chairman of the Association of British Kart Clubs, Colin Wright. And Colin, we're going through a difficult time in karting at the moment, and there's some issues. I want to talk to you about them. Now, first of all, from my point of view, I think there needs to be a radical change in the way people can get MSA licences. I've been to a number of non-MSA events in the last few months and asked a lot of people why they do non-MSA racing instead of MSA racing, and there seems to be an opinion that it's simpler, it's less costly, and it seems to be more fun. Those are the three things, and things like medicals, for example, they quote as well, the cost of medicals. What's your view on what's happening at the moment and where we go from here?
So karting in general is doing well, but outside of our MSA rules. If we look at the NKA and corporate karting, 1.2 million people got their bums in seats last year. Now, if we can't get 5,000 of those, then we're doing, you're right, Alan, we're doing something seriously wrong. We have too many barriers to entry. You know, we could look at ways to get more spectators in, but then we say, now you've got to get a medical, now you've got to get an ARCS test, now you've got to get... In the grand scheme of things, that price isn't a dramatic amount in karting, but it all comes in one go. So that guy in a medical, for instance, I'd love to go and race again, but I'm not going to go through the proposal of having to get a medical. I'd like to, just like in Holland, turn up and do a day license and self-certify and be able to go out and race. And that's what they can do in non-MSA or IndyCart racing, or whatever we deem to call it. So there has to be that alignment between MSA and IndyCart. At the moment, it's too difficult to get into. I see guys come up and practice, and I'd ask the same things. Why aren't you racing? So it's not us making it up. It's those real individuals that just don't want to go through the hassle. They've got more important things to do in the weekend than sit and have a medical and be dictated to. So I think the simpler aspect is we will continue to see non-MSA grow. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if we want to bring more of those into this form of regulated karting, we can't continue the same way we've done for 20 years. We can't continue with medicals. We can't continue with those barriers to get these people in. Once they're in, they're hooked. But we're not bringing enough in. We're seeing more going than's coming in.
Yeah, and I guess, I think from my point of view, I've suggested that the first thing that needs to happen is we need to get rid of the ARCS packs, the Association of Racing Kart School pack, that you need to buy if you want a licence. Now, it includes your first licence, the first MSA licence, but it costs £75. It includes DVDs and books, and I spoke to Nigel Morris at Houghton Park recently. He's got 3 children, had to spend £225 on 3 packs. Now, I think the first thing we need to do is have free ARCS pack, a free licence, free MSA licence. They need to give a free licence for the first year. Let's get them in first of all, so that once they're in, at least they can experience MSA racing. But at the moment, it's too expensive, and as you say, it's a barrier to entry at the moment. And the other thing, the medical, is very, very important. Now, I've got some real concerns about the sport carrying on under the auspices of the MSA unless we can sort these problems out, and they are massive problems. And I know you've already had a meeting with the MSA and voiced those concerns, haven't you?
At the beginning of the year when I took over, it's very clear that I had to solicit opinion from the whole paddock in terms of what's going on. And I hear it day in, day out. You know, the guys that they're leaving the sport. It's not me making it up. It's not you making it up, Alan. It's these guys that want to stay in, but they're sick of over-regulation. They're sick of this long judicials. They want to stay in. In terms of the ARCS test, again, we can't keep doing things that worked 20 years ago. We're in the 21st century. We've got digital online. We have social media. We have different ways that these customers communicate. send in and put in a notice board up, they won't read them. So the ARCS test, why not put it online? Why not download a digital version? You run it on the day. A competency test. If I'm in motocross, I can go and buy a bike today and I can race tomorrow on a day license. They look and see I've got a competency. Yep, that's fine. He can go and race. Now, arguably, that's a much, much more dangerous sport than karting is. I raced both as younger. I raced motocross, I raced jet skis, and all of those, I didn't have to do that regulation. So, you know, I turned up, can he ride a bike? Yes, fine, let him race. And that's what it is. Just let them race. We're putting too many hurdles in place of these guys coming out and just having fun, having a smile, racing, making friends. There's only 3,500 to 4,000 license holders. Arguably, we're a little bit over-regulated for that amount of few people. So I agree, Alan, we've got to do something because as it is, you know, this side of the sport will continue to dwindle. I can't see any changes. We can't wait 2 or 3 years to make a decision. If it makes sense, let's make a decision, make it quickly, impact it, put it in place, and if it's wrong, put our hands up. Look, it didn't work. And then move back and try something different. But we have 34 clubs inside the ABKC, 32, 30, 28. I don't know. Some of them are fighting for their very survival, and they will have to go non-MSA, and they are going non-MSA. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Financially, it has to be a good thing for them because that means they continue to exist and karters continue to get the kart out and go on a bit of tarmac. If we lose some of these, then they'll shut down, and then that's a biggest travesty, that if we do start to build the karting fraternity back up, they'll have nowhere to go. Yeah,
and the success of the non-MSA Indy Kart Racing League at Hooton Park, I mentioned this last week when I interviewed Graham Butterworth at Hooton Park, they've got pretty much 3 times the number of people racing non-MSA than MSA. Now, we who are supporting MSA racing need them to understand the differences, and they don't seem to be going out and sending a representative down to non-MSA events and saying, listen guys, what's going on? Well, it's simple, it's easy, it's cheap, and it's fun, and that's what we want. And those are the things really that they've got to take on board. I mean, the medical, I was speaking to Mark Litchfield before, he spends pretty much on his licence, including his international licence as a medical and so on, about £400 a year to get a licence. That's absolute nonsense.
It's like you, I've been to many of the non-MSA events, and there is a perception that it's the wild, wild west. It's not. They're very, very well run. They've got ambulances. They have to run safety, and they're insured. So anybody that thinks that they're a step down from MSA needs to go and have a look to see what these guys run. At the end of the day, those guys leave with a smile. If they see a transgressor, he's sent home. But guess what? He's sent home with a view that, come back next month, here's your free entrance, because he's a customer. We're not looking at all these drivers as customers. So we need to be more customer, whether it's the MSA, the ABKC, anybody. If we don't treat them as customers, they have another choice. That choice is cars, that choice is jet skis, that choice is motocross. And those sports are continuing to grow. We're not growing, we're on the downward spiral. We must stabilise that and then start to build it back up. Doing it the same way we've done for 20 years, Alan, that's not going to stabilise.
No, and you've got a situation now where, as if things weren't bad enough with 14-year-olds going off and racing cars, we've now got this new regulation that's come in. Let's take the 15-year-olds and let them go and race single-seaters. So we've got a situation where the governing body has a conflict of interest where karting is concerned, because they're saying, we're going to take all your young kids that should be in karts till they're 18, quite frankly. I mean, if you ask Paul Fletcher, he'll tell you his quote is, yeah, for life. He won't let them leave. But, you know, surely we've got to have people in karting for longer, letting them going off racing cars at 14 and now single seasons at 15. That's a conflict of interest, isn't it, the MSA have there with our sport?
I think it presents possibly a feeding frenzy. And the guys with the big budgets, they obviously always see karting as a stepping stone, and that will never change. But the perception is, absolutely, Alan, that you know, my son started when he was 3, he's 17 now. He's got no interest to go to cars because the purity of our sport, the value for money, is phenomenal. And I agree with you. You know, they should stay till they're at least 18. They haven't learnt their craft yet in terms of motorsport, and arguably, wouldn't they be a much better driver when they're matured mentally to get to cars with that stable of background in karting, the ability to overtake, the ability to outbrake, and that concept of going in with a little bit more maturity than, say, a 14-year-old. Present a 14-year-old against a 16-year-old against an 18-year-old. What's the maturity of their heads? It's completely different. So I'm astounded at that decision. I don't understand it. Is it a conflict of interest? It's not doing anything to help karting, put it like that, because you know, we see guys will see us as even shorter stepping stone. They may come in at 11, and guess what? They're only there for 3 years. What are they going to do in those 3 years? They're just using us to get completely to Formula One or whatever their aspirations are. But we need to be mindful of, this is a sport in its own right. It is a discipline in its own right. It's not being managed as that component. We are slotted against something else, against rallying, against everything else. So a conflict of interest may seem harsh, but it's a question that we need to field to the MSA to say, this makes no sense. You know, you're targeting our competitors to go to a different formula. We may as well open the door to say, motocross, to say, come in and grab all our guys and take them. That's what this seems to have done. In reality, we're probably talking 20 or 30 drivers, but if we're not replacing those at the bottom end, we're just going to dwindle more and more. We're not filling enough at club level to keep them coming through because there's barriers to entry. So everything is perpetuating through to this problem of us losing them to single-seaters. I'm aghast at that decision.
Well, ever mindful of the need to promote the sport, specifically MSA karting, check out the Association of British Kart Clubs website at abkc.org.uk for your local circuit and club. And as I always say, there will be one close to you. There was a support race this weekend at Super 1 for IAME and Honda Cadet. The last lap was an absolute classic. Here's Jake with those highlights.
What a battle this is turning into here. Into the last lap and up the inside, very nearly into second place. There goes Maxwell Dodds trying to take on Bray Keneally, but Tyler Reid in the 22 holds this lead for the moment. Keneally second and Maxwell Dodds in the 33 swarming around all over the back of them, trying to make the move stick. Through top bend and into the back straight. Bray Keneally trying to defend from Maxwell Dodds and take on Tyler Reid at the same time. He's the man in the middle here. Up the inside on the left-hander. Through he goes into the lead. Very nicely done there for Bray Keneally as Tyler Reid defends valiantly from Maxwell Dodds. He almost allowed him to go through there as well as they make their way through the double right apex of the bottom straight and up towards the elbow, the penultimate corner. Bray Keneally looks behind him. He knows where Tyler Reid might go. Holds it onto the inside line. 4 wheels off the road there for Tyler Reid as he goes for the inside. Maxwell Dodds round the outside takes the win, and there's contact between Reid and Bray Keneally over the line. It looked to me as though Keneally just crossed the line in second position behind Dodds. Let's look again. 4 wheels off the road there for the 22 of Tyler Reid as he tries to make his move on the inside of Keneally. There's no space. Keneally holds the inside line as he's entitled to do. A bucking bronco of a kart over the curbs there. Round the outside, Maxwell Dodds catches them both asleep and grabs the win. Fantastic from him. Bray Keneally, look, his arm is in the air. What are you doing, Sunshine? And it almost looks like Tyler Reid just turns into him over the line. Absolutely amazing. The chap behind their circle, that's the clerk of the course. That's Alan Bryant. He's got the best seat in the house for this incident, and you can bet he's got an opinion on it.
That was the IAME Honda support race. Up next, the official British Championship for cadets from 9 years of age.